This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays are over, the decorations are down, and suddenly everything feels a little empty. It's normal to feel the winter blues after the holiday excitement. January, February, and March are by far my least favorite months of the year. It's cold and dark, and I have to get some extra vitamin D on board. I also need to keep my regular scheduled appointments with my therapist. So if you're feeling that post-holiday funk, I definitely suggest you checking out BetterHelp because maybe it's time to talk. You might also be one of those people like me who makes New Year's resolutions and you get super motivated. So maybe you need someone behind you to hold you accountable and come up with a plan to meet your goals. BetterHelp is super convenient, totally online. You have a therapist right at your fingertips whenever you need them. So head over to betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 for 10% off your first month.
This podcast is an unscripted, unedited conversation about true crime. We take the cases very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously at all. And neither should you. Welcome to Wife of Crime.
So, Russ, do you know what truly terrifies me? The stories about nurses and doctors who kill. Like, imagine being in the hospital in your most vulnerable state, and the person you're trusting to take care of you is actually evil. Today, I'm telling you a story just like that. This is the case of Jolly Jane. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wife of Crime, a true crime podcast where I tell my husband, Russ, true crime stories and he reacts to them.
What's up, folks? It's me, Russ, again.
Russ is in the building. Happy New Year, everybody. Very happy New Year. And hopefully everyone's having a happy and safe New Year. But one very sad thing happened this week that we must address. You know what that is?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back to work on Tuesday.
No, even sadder. The beloved Betty White died. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Golden Girl.
I know. She was so funny. She died like right before her 100th birthday. Imagine being that close to your 100th birthday.
You know, she dipped out. She said, I'm not with this 2022. 2020, 2021 was whack.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I'm out.
Now it's 2022. 2020 TOO.
Do you ever do New Year's resolutions?
I used to, but I had epically failed every year on keeping my resolutions. So I've decided for my own sanity and self-care, I won't promise myself anything anymore because I won't follow through. Do you?
Not necessarily. I kind of just like have one and it's always just like stay great. So just be me.
You're an idiot.
And just stay myself, you know.
Well, you are always your authentic self. So
Right
that's
here.
Great.
Just trying to dodge this Omarion variant of the COVID.
Omicron. Omarion. What was that song Omarion had about cold heart? What was it? I can't remember.
Oh, the Ice Cube.
Oh, yeah,
How it used to be?
Yeah.
Why do I'm embarrassed to know this, but I do.
It's an ice cube where my heart. That one? Yeah, that was it. So, yeah, Betty White died. Sad news, which is horrible. But hopefully everybody had a drink for her on New Year's Eve because she was a G. And especially in comedy, she was a funny lady. Her character Rose on Golden Girls was so funny. Although I love Blanche, the slut. She was really funny.
I don't know which one's which.
Blanche was the slut.
They were just all a bunch. What's crazy is they probably were like 50 years old back then because this was like when I was a kid and I'm older now. No, obviously, everyone's older than they were when they were a kid. That's pretty, but I'm like, that was a decent amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
People were washed early back then.
Yeah, they were probably in their 60s, I would say.
I think what it is back then there were no hair products and everyone's hair was frizzy.
Everyone had frizzy hair. A lot of people did the perm thing.
Frizzy hair makes you look old because your hair looks unhealthy.
Yeah, that's very true. So we decided to cover, like, we wouldn't be your New York best friends if we didn't cover the Times Square Killer on Netflix for our True Crime and Chill January episode. So if you guys
are on Patreon,
I was about to say, if you guys are a patron, we'll be releasing that in the next week or so. We're doing it a little different this time. We're actually going to do an episode for each episode. So it's a 3-part series. So we'll be releasing 3 separate episodes covering each part of the series. So we're trying it a little different this time. But if you're not a patron and you're interested, go check it out.
We might release all 3 episodes at one time, though.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
We're really unsure. Because, like, if I watch 2 episodes, we may just do 2 at once and 1 separate. We kind of just wing it.
We always just wing it.
And Jess is over here trying to be, like, a program director and stuff. And I'm like...
I'm the executive producer of Wife of Crime. I'm the executive producer of your life and of Wife of Crime. So
that's annoying.
Aren't you?
I'm the Walt Clyde Frazier of this. I'm spinning, winning, thrilling, and chilling.
A lot of people don't know who Walt Clyde Frazier is.
But everyone has internet, so I don't have to explain
That's
a thing.
True. You can Google him.
Yeah.
That's very true. Well, you have the patron shout-outs, so let's do your job.
I do, but we did forget about one thing.
What?
That lady, Ghislaine, or whatever her name is, Maxwell, was convicted
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Of, you know what, she doesn't even deserve her name to be said right, so who cares what her name is? This cunt was convicted for selling kids.
Yeah, she's a terrible human being. So.
Yeah, so, you know, I hope, you know, she walks into her cell and she sees the same rope right by her bed that her boyfriend or whatever the hell he was hung himself with sitting there.
Oh, God.
And I hope it's like loose. So it like breaks right when she's about to die, and then they put another rope in, and it's like an endless cycle of her dying in the Matrix and waking up in jail.
So you want her to live in the Matrix in jail and just die every day, like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, and then maybe like some beatings from other people, because if you sell kids, that's what you deserve.
Yeah, well, it's true.
So R.I.P. to her before she's dead, or not even R.I.P.
She's got a lot of names.
I say R.I.P. rotten pieces.
So here's the thing, though. She's got a lot. Oh yeah, you said R.I.P. Don't say that.
Well, I meant just like good riddance.
Yeah,
like bon voyage, bitch.
So she's got a lot of names that she could expose. So I don't know. She's probably going to be placed right on suicide watch right away.
Nah, the rope's going to be sitting there.
No, but she's going to probably out a lot of people that engaged in these parties, these sex parties with these young girls that are famous and celebrities, and it's going to lessen her sentence. So we'll see how that all pans out.
I wonder how many people went to these parties, didn't know what the hell was going on, and they just went.
I doubt it. He had a reputation.
You ever went to a party you shouldn't be in? You walk in the party like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, but he had a reputation for his parties.
Well, one time I was out partying with a friend, and then always when someone says want to go to after hour spot, it's always iffy.
It's questionable, yeah.
Yeah, we were just like in a bar party. He goes, want to go to after hour spot? It's like in this guy's house I know in like the basement or something. And it looks residential. And I walk in there, and it's just a bunch of naked, big booty girls twerking on people, and people throwing money. I didn't know I was going to an underground strip club in the hood of the Bronx. And then you walk in, you're like, what the hell am I doing here?
I didn't know that. When was that? Were you like in your early 20s?
Yeah, I was definitely it had to be well over 10, 15 years ago.
Wow.
And then what am I going to do? You know, I'm already there, so you know what I do?
You stayed.
I get some singles.
Oh, stop.
What are you going to do? Sit there and not give singles and look like a lame?
I don't know, but that's really funny.
Yeah, you don't want to be the bum.
Well, anyway, how do we get on? Go ahead. Do your patron shout outs.
Oh, so I got the patron shout outs. Obviously, you guys know we got the patron, and these are all our Patreons.
It's the Patreon, and there are patrons.
Oh, the Patreons.
No, they're
of the patron. Appreciate you guys very much. We do a lot of stuff there that my curator sets up, aka Jess. So these are the Patreons of this week. We got Amber, Judiana, Pau, Jen, Chandra, Hannah, Lucy, Allie, Nicole, Lauren, Sarah, Brandy, Elizabeth, Sabrina, Demi, Julia, Betsy, Teresa, Amber, Kenzie, and Natalie. So, cheers to all you.
Yes, cheers to you guys. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
God damn, I spilled it on my leg. Like when you open it and the bubbles come over the top.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I also have another job. Jess was say, Russ, so why don't you do your other job? This one is russisthebomb.com. In parentheses, Jess 2.
Oh, thanks.
5 stars. This is from McGee. I don't do the numbers behind the name no more. What up, McGee? Y'all need to read this in my Texas backwoods accent. I'm not sure how that goes, but Russ is truly mold. At first, I was like, God, he needs to shut up. But now, the dynamic between the two is awesome. The way Jess gets frustrated is super funny and cute. Russ is hilarious. Before I looked him up to put a face to him, I am picturing a Bronx boy bander. Nailed it.
A Bronx boy bander.
I'll take it. You know, I guess them boys is handsome.
Oh, you're Rustin Timberlake. Remember, one of our patrons named you that.
I think that was Chris.
It was Rustin Timberlake in the building.
Chris got jokes. I'm going to look him up.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so that's all of our stuff. So I was reading online the other day, and I came across an article about a nurse named William George Davis, who was just sent...
William?
Yes.
They let men be nurses?
Shut up, Russell. You're so annoying. His name is William George Davis, and he was just sentenced to death in October of 2021 for murdering patients who were recovering from heart surgery. So William worked at Christus Mother Frances Hospital in Tyler, Texas. He was an ICU nurse.
I just did a Texas review.
Yep. He was an ICU nurse, and he apparently would go into his patients' rooms after heart surgery and inject their IV lines with air. And then that would cause them to have strokes. And he
It's that
actually...
simple?
Yeah, I mean, a big giant, I mean, not like a little air bubble. Like, he had to inject a lot of air into the line. It's called an air embolus.
Do you think he would blow in the straw? Like with his mouth?
He would use a syringe full of air and inject it into the IV line, and then the patients would suffer strokes.
That's crazy.
He actually killed 4 men this way. So William worked as a nurse for 5 years, and he was actually very well liked by his coworkers and all of his patients. So when hospital administration started investigating the deaths of the patients, a lot of people couldn't believe it. They were like, what? This guy? Everyone loves him. But the idiot sealed his fate when he made a phone call to his wife. While he was locked up in jail waiting trial, he made a phone call. And the phone calls from jail are recorded, as we know, from doing all of our true crime cases. And during the phone call, he actually told her he was trying to keep the patient sick in the ICU so he could pick up more overtime.
Oh, damn. That's like when one time I got arrested and the cops talk about I was in the car, so... They were talking about how, like, they do arrests sometimes so they can get overtime that day.
Wow.
It's very similar.
Wow, that's crazy. You heard them say that?
Yeah. And then they was like, yeah, we took you in. We're trying to get overtime today.
Wow, what jerks.
Them cocksuckers.
Yeah, what jerks. So that's what he claimed to his wife. But, you know, there was interviews with multiple staff members on the unit, and coworkers said that this made 0 sense because the hospital is incredibly short-staffed, like all hospitals have been for the last 2 to 3 years, and there were tons of opportunity for overtime. That the managers would text people about overtime, just like my managers do. So clearly,
Stop texting Jess for overtime.
So
Jess is like, oh no, they listen.
So clearly, he killed these men on purpose. Isn't that crazy? Imagine getting heart surgery and you're in the ICU recovering and then you die because one of your nurses kills you.
Hopefully the families find out and give him the smoke.
Well, they all found out. He just got sentenced to death. I told you that.
Hopefully let the family members...
He's in jail on death row.
Flip the electricity.
He's now added to the long list of serial killer healthcare workers all over the world. As a healthcare professional myself, these types of cases always really fascinate me, to be honest, because I don't know. I just don't get it. And I'm simultaneously incredibly angered by them. Like the show Dr. Death, the podcast and now show that's on Peacock, Dr. Death. It's also an amazing show, but incredibly infuriating at the same time.
Yeah, that one's a little too much, man.
It was crazy.
Like, this guy was just killing people.
Yeah. So we trust our healthcare providers to take care of us, to do the right thing. But there are sick, disgusting people in every industry. And unfortunately, since medicine is not something that everyone knows or understands, most patients, unless you are a healthcare worker or have family that's in medicine, have to go to hospital and blindly trust their nurses and doctors and even the techs that take care of them.
But sometimes that's kind of like, where else would people that want to victimize certain types of people go? People that want to get children, might be a teacher, a Boy Scout person, or something like that. Somebody that wants to victimize vulnerable people might work in a hospital.
Yeah, it's true.
So
it's very scary.
You go where your targets are.
It's very true. So, like, with access to drugs and the vulnerable position that patients are put in, it's easy for good nurses and doctors to make honest mistakes. But it's also easy for sinister, evil people to slip through the cracks and do their dirty work, posing as someone who cares.
I think there was like an old woman nurse that did this.
Oh, the profiler is here.
I am the profiler.
So today I'm telling you
I'm styling and profiling this whole episode. You already know, baby.
So today I'm telling you the case of a serial killer nurse. Turn on your black and white TV brain because this is an oldie. This woman is widely considered to be the first female serial killer in U.S. history. Are you ready?
Yeah, I thought we already did the episode.
No, we've never done this one.
No, I mean, like, we just did an episode right now. You told me the story of this dude.
No, that's the story that reminded me of this one. Is reading that article.
That was a pre-episode to the episode after our introductions.
Yes.
Mind blown. Now I'm in the loop of the Matrix.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
I was ready.
Jane Toppan was born March 31st, 1854 in Boston. She was the daughter of two Irish immigrants. Not a lot is really known about her childhood because we're, researching it online. And there's a bit of conflicting info.
And there was no computers back then.
Yeah, this is an old story.
So if the papers get too wrinkled, you can't read it anymore, and now your records are lost.
Exactly. So the things we do know are this. She had a sister named Delia, and her mother died of tuberculosis when Jane was just a little girl. We also know that her father, Peter, was a raging alcoholic. His neighbors even gave him a nickname, Kelly the Crackpot. That was his nickname.
Wow. Is he the OG crackhead?
Well, he was a drunk, and he was also had mental illness. So he was, he lost his marbles.
But I was thinking the name. Like, was he the first one?
Well, they called him Kelly the Crackpot, and for short, they called him Kelly the Crack.
Wow. He was the first cracky.
He was the first crackhead, yeah, I would say. Without crack, because he didn't do crack. So he had totally lost his marbles, and was known to do some really off-the-wall crazy things. He worked as a tailor, and one day, while at work, he just decided it would be a great idea to sew his eyes shut.
That's really waking up dead.
He sewed his eyes shut.
But wait, did he numb it?
No. He just sewed his eyes shut.
That's really hard to grab. Like, I'm trying to grab my eyelashes.
If
Jess grabs hers, she might pull hers off because they're probably glued on.
No, they're not fake. I don't fake eyelashes. So, nothing against them. I'm just not wearing them at home.
Oh.
So anyway.
I don't know what Jess does. She's always in the bathroom for a long time. She's getting ready.
In 1863, Jane is about 9 years old at this point, and her father took her and her sister Delia and dropped them off at a place called Boston Female Asylum.
How are we passing by him sewing his eyes shut?
We didn't. We talked about it.
Yeah, but how did he keep them shut? Did he cut them back off, open?
No, he didn't keep them shut. He must have cut them open or went to a doctor, whatever, because what I'm about to tell you is he got sent to a mental institution. But before he went to his mental institution, he sent his 2 girls, when Jane was 9 years old, to Boston Female Asylum, which is an orphanage for girls. So after these 2 sisters lived in this orphanage for a while, a lady named Jane Toppan was looking for a servant for her home. She's like a rich lady in Boston, and she's looking for a servant for her home. So she decides it's a really good idea to go to an orphanage to get a kid to be her servant.
Sometimes as a man, if you need a servant, you just got to get married.
Shut up. You're so full of it. Every woman wants to slap you at this point. So these were really fucked up times back then because, I mean, if you're a rich person, you're looking for a servant, you go to an orphanage, it's really sad, to be honest. So she goes to this orphanage and she decides that Jane is the one she wants to adopt. Jane is only like 9 years old at this point. So she brings Jane home into her house and she lives with this family and she kind of becomes part of the family, but at the same time, not so much. Like they like to throw in her face and remind her that she's just an Irish immigrant, that she's a servant in their home, and kind of just keep throwing it in her face, like her place in society.
I wonder if they're doing that meanly, or like when I was young, I would tell my sister she's adopted even though she wasn't, just to like mess with her.
Well, that's mean.
Yeah, but like meanly, like in a vindictive way, not in a funny way.
No, they were doing it in a you need to know your role type of way. They weren't doing it to like poke fun at her.
Because now, after I got older, I'm starting to think I'm the adopted one because I'm so much smarter than everyone in my family.
You're so stupid. So they didn't necessarily treat her bad, but they didn't really treat her good either. And at this time in history, being an Irish immigrant was actually really hard. Like when you moved to America as an Irish immigrant, you were looked at less than. You were unable to get jobs because a lot of jobs wouldn't hire Irish people. They were very discriminated against at this time in history. So Jane, you know, she worked for this family, but she kind of almost developed a little bit of like a Stockholm syndrome living with them. She didn't necessarily love them, but they kind of forced her to try to like appreciate the fact that they gave her this opportunity. But it wasn't really an opportunity. They just let her live there and she worked for them.
I wonder how much she worked.
She did like the house cleaning, the keeping. She babysat the little kids. Like she was like their servant / nanny.
I can't believe that they would just let you take kids with the intentions of them being a slave. But then I was also told by people who have kids that kids are just like little slaves and you make them do stuff anyway.
Yeah, but this is different because it's not her kid. She just went and picked a kid up out of an orphanage.
So all the parents right now, if you have kids sitting around listening to this, make them get up and do something.
So the family had a little girl around the same age as Jane. Her name was Elizabeth. And Jane and Elizabeth got along pretty well. And they seemed like close friends from the outside. But a lot of girls listening will tell you that when you're a younger girl, sometimes you have frenemies. Frenemies are like friends, but you're not really friends. You kind of don't like each other, but you pretend to be friends. And this is kind of how their relationship was, because Elizabeth would throw in Jane's face all the time that she was better than her because she came from this rich, wealthy family.
Women are dumb. No, women are dumb. You're laughing at that, but women are dumb for pretending to be friends with someone they don't like. Men just be like, I don't fuck with that dude. And in New York, when we were younger, if you don't mess with someone, you'd be like, oh, I don't mess with him. Why not? Like, oh, he's a herb. And that's all we needed. That's all. Like, oh, word, he's a herb? All right. Say less. And girls like, why don't you like her? She wore the same color shirt as me 2 Thursdays ago, bitch.
Well, women or girls, I mean, some women too, are just very petty. Like, it's tough being friends with girls sometimes because girls can be very petty. Which, I mean, you're pretty petty, so you kind of see why.
My pettiness is very deliberate, though.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not hiding it.
That's true.
At all. So you may just say I'm mean.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Or spiteful.
You guys already know because we have been talking about them for a while now. Via Hemp is by far one of our favorite sponsors we've ever had, okay? We use their products all the time. Maybe you're a little like me. You're a little anxious. You have a hard time settling down. You're kind of wound up a lot. If that's you, Via Hemp products are for you. Check out their website. You will find something that speaks to you. Maybe you're like Russ. You have a hard time sleeping because you have bad nerve pain or chronic pain. Then Via Hemp is for you because their gummies will help you get some quality sleep. Maybe you're looking to have a really good time. Maybe you just really like edibles. You want to laugh. You want to get the munchies. You want to watch a movie and have a really strong belly laugh. Then Via Hemp products are for you, okay? They're literally for everybody. So head over to viahemp.com, promo code wifeofcrime1 to get 15% off your first order. That's VIIAHEMP.com, wifeofcrime1 for 15% off your first order. Last year, Save More Money was the most popular New Year's resolution in America. Clearly, a lot of us feel like our money is slipping through our fingers. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not the best saver, and I don't know much about investing until I started saving and investing with Acorns. Turns out you don't have to be an expert at all because Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that fits you and your money goals. And I always thought that when people say, ooh, I invest in stocks, that they had a ton of money or something. Well, you don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you invest with the spare money you've got right now. You can literally start with $5. And you know you guys are spending that at Starbucks on these fancy lattes. So skip the coffee and invest with Acorns. You don't even need a ton of time. Like you can just sign up and start investing within 5 minutes. Head over to acorns.com/wifeofcrime or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. That's acorns.com/wifeofcrime.
So as Jane grew up, she was actually very well liked in the community. She was very popular. She had a lot of friends. One thing about her is people really liked her stories because she would tell all these crazy elaborate stories about her family. She said that her dad was a sailor and that her sister married a prince. But we really know that her dad was insane and in a mental institution, and her sister actually died in the orphanage. But she made up these stories and people really liked it. They also trusted her with their kids. She would babysit all the neighborhood kids, and she was very well liked. And then in school, though, she would make up lies about her fellow classmates. And the teachers never really disciplined her, which is weird. Like, she would make up these lies. It would come out that they were lies, but the teachers wouldn't really give her any discipline. She never really got in trouble for it. She kind of just spent her life getting away with a lot of things.
Depends on what you lie about, whether you should really get in trouble or not.
Well, she would do it to be vindictive and, like, get her classmates in trouble.
Oh.
So.
But if you're like, oh, that person smells bad, that's like not a big lie. That's just like making fun of someone.
Yeah, but.
Or like a yo mama joke, even though yo mama wasn't so fat that she jumped in the air and got stuck. Like, that's like a lie, but it's.
Yeah, but she would lie and say like her classmates were doing things that they weren't to get them in trouble.
Oh.
So.
You didn't think my yo mama joke was funny.
I mean, it was a little funny.
Yeah, I got plenty more where that came from. Maybe we do on Instagram. Tell us your best yo mama
We
joke.
tried that. No one responded. Remember? You were like, damn, no one thinks that's funny.
Oh, yeah. I guess you guys ain't funny. The hell?
In 1885, Jane began her nursing training at Cambridge Hospital. Everyone loved Jane. Her coworkers, her patients, everyone thought she's so bubbly, she's so happy and positive all the time. So they gave her the nickname.
Those are my least favorite people.
That's not true.
You take your happy, positive ass away from me.
No, you like positivity. You're so full of it.
You come over here, get cynical, and make fun of good things with me.
No, you're not really like that. Don't play around.
Look at his smiling ass. Fuck you smiling at over there, Smiley.
No, we were watching TV the other day, and you were like, I wish I could be like that guy who was like very positive and optimistic and nice.
As I proceeded probably to change the channel.
So everyone loved her, and they even gave her the nickname Jolly Jane. And this nickname would stick with her for years. The further Jane got into her nursing career, though, things got very sick and scary. Jane figured out that she loved injecting her patients with morphine. And she loved seeing how far she could take them. She would just inject a little more and a little more and a little more. And she liked the fact that it would pretty much put them in like a comatose state, paralyzing them, but not killing them. So she kind of got addicted to watching her patients slip further and further and further, closer to death, but not quite dying. And then she would bring them back.
That's what they need to do to Ghislaine Maxwell. That's called the Ghislaine. Let her keep slipping close to death, bring her back, and let her realize she's in jail still.
So she decided to add another drug into the mix. This drug is called atropine. And we give atropine to this day all the time. So if you come into the hospital and your heart rate drops really low, like say you come in and your heart rate is super low and it won't come up, we'll give you a drug called atropine because it makes your heart start to beat faster. And that's what she would do. So she would inject her patients with morphine, get them to go really close to dying. Their respiratory rates and their heart rate would get really low. And then she would inject them with atropine and have them come back and then put them back down and then have them come back. Like she enjoyed watching them get that close to death.
That's crazy.
She also really enjoyed having control over people. Something really sick that she would do is she would medicate her patients with the morphine, bring them all the way down to like a paralyzed state, and then she would sexually assault them.
Oh, geez.
And lay in bed with them and do whatever she wanted to them. And then she would bring them back with the atropine, which is so sick to me. Like, it's disgusting. So eventually, after doing all this crazy shit to a bunch of patients, some of them died because she would paralyze them and then they would eventually die. She wouldn't be able to bring them back.
Isn't that kind of like what scientists do, though? Like in the early stages back in the day, they would just like test medicine randomly.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, morphine had been out for a long time at this point. They have enough medication and like education to know what the drug does. So.
Did they even have light bulbs then?
Yes. This is 1889 at this point.
I got to look when light bulbs were invented.
Well, yeah.
But I bet they weren't readily available.
I don't know if every place had electricity.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a time where they were doing surgeries at this point. They were doing, you were getting hospital care.
That's scary. Oh, light bulbs were invented in 1802.
Mm-hmm. So they'd almost been around for 100 years.
Oh, this one says Thomas Edison patented it in 1879.
Oh, okay. So then it was patented, and so it was probably available, but not maybe available to everybody at that point.
Yeah, it was probably like a rich person thing, I bet.
Yeah, definitely. Eventually, after doing all this crazy stuff, like I said, her patients, some of them died. And as they died, she would climb into bed with them and caress them. And she admitted that later down the line, when she was finally caught, she admitted that doing this got her off. She did it for sexual pleasure, which is pretty sick. So the hospital wasn't suspicious of Jane for a long time because back in this time, healthcare wasn't that good. Like it was in early stages using all these medications. They still didn't understand like sanitary practices and aseptic technique and all that. So there was a lot that was unknown. So a lot of patients died in the hospital at this time.
I bet they didn't know about infections and all that stuff either.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they knew about infections. I think penicillin was invented by now. I'm pretty sure. I don't know the exact time it was invented, but...
Do you need Russ, the researcher, on that case?
No, it's okay. You don't have to. I mean, it was around the time where healthcare was evolving. So they didn't really suspect anything because patients died a lot in hospitals, right?
Till this day, that's where most people, I would assume, die.
But I'm saying, like, they were used to people passing away and they didn't suspect her of doing it. So the patients who died under Jane's watch weren't really looked into. And her coworkers and managers and administration and doctors, they all loved her. So no one suspected a thing. So 4 years later, Jane was recommended by her bosses to get a job at Massachusetts General Hospital, which is still to this day a very prestigious hospital. It's kind of like really well known. But shortly after, she was fired, not for murdering anyone, but because doctors noticed her like over administering opiates to her patients. They didn't know that she was doing it on purpose, but she was doing it on purpose.
But it wasn't enough to kill people probably at that point,
it was
she
enough.
was being watched, so she probably was doing it a little bit.
Yeah, she wasn't doing it enough to kill anyone, but it was enough to be like overdone. So she went back to Cambridge, and after a year, she was fired from there because that hospital noticed she was giving too many opiates. So Jane decided, what's the best next step? Let's go into home health care. And she was very successful at it. And this was perfect for her because no one was watching her. She would usually, get an elderly person who needed health care at home, which is so scary when you think about it, because even to this day, there are tons and tons and tons of people who are older who need health care at home, and they have these nurses come into their house. And
that's why you got to be good to your kids, because they'll just leave you with anyone.
Well,
do you hear that, parents?
It doesn't matter.
When you hear that, kids? If you listen to this, whenever your parents get on your nerves, say, you better be nice to me, or you're going in a bad nursing home when you get old.
In this case, Jane was not suspecting. I mean, no one was suspecting Jane. She was very well liked.
No, but I'm saying, that's true. So they could have been tricked.
Yeah, they were totally tricked by her. She was very trustworthy in people's eyes, and she was super well liked. So, she would get jobs for these elderly people's families. And Jane's resume was also very good. She came from 2 really well-known hospitals, one of them that was very prestigious. So families, really trusted her and trusted her judgment based on her resume and her personality. So Jane was living with this elderly couple for about 2 years, and she poisoned and killed both of them. After this, she got a job taking care of an elderly woman whose husband had just died. A few months later, she died, and Jane told the woman's granddaughter that it was from natural causes. And the granddaughter didn't question Jane. She believed her because she was like, well, my grandmother was old.
Unless Jane did the autopsy, how could Jane tell her it's natural causes, though? So that's just you trusting someone in the black and white era of my mind.
Yeah, they didn't. What are they going to do? Question what she says? She's a trained nurse who has been hired to take care of this old lady, and the old lady died. So the granddaughter was like, okay, she believed her. So remember the stepsister Elizabeth, the one she was frenemies with?
Yeah.
Well, they kept in touch throughout the years, and Jane decided to invite Elizabeth to spend some time with her in Cape Cod. Jane would end up killing Elizabeth that week. So she said later that she made Elizabeth suffer because she
this was her
hated
sister?
her stepsister.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, the one that's from the family that adopted her out of the orphanage.
Damn.
So she had her come stay with her in Cape Cod, and she made this lady suffer for an entire week before killing her. And
How?
later, she kept drugging her.
That's not that bad.
No, she would do what she was doing to her patients, where she would drug them to a paralyzed state and then give them atropine to have them come back. And God knows what else she did to the lady. But she said later on, after she got caught, that she killed her on purpose. She hated her. And this was the only killing that she did in a malicious way. That's what she claims. So after this, Jane moves in with a family called the Davis family. And the Davis family had a large estate in Cape Cod. And she lived in kind of like the back of the house in this apartment. It was like a building behind the main home. So Jane lived there for about a few years, and the family loved her. And she was kind of like their caregiver for the children. And she also helped with like the cooking and cleaning. And she was a nurse. So since she was a nurse, the family trusted her with like any kind of medical things that would come up whenever they were ill. So Jane racked up a bunch of debt with this family because she didn't pay rent, and she like needed supplies and stuff like that, and they would give her money. In the end of it, she owed them $500, which today would be equivalent to $15,000.
Wow.
And Maddie Davis, the wife, came to Jane's apartment and said, hey, look, like, you got to give me a little bit of money towards this. Like, you owe us at this time, you owe us $500. Can we work something out, like a payment plan or whatever? And, Jane's a bit of a smooth talker. So she invited her into the apartment and offered her a glass of mineral water. Mineral water has kind of a weird taste. So
she could get over, like, put the shit in it.
Yeah. So it masked the fact that
mineral water bubbly or something?
Mineral water is not bubbly. It's flat, but it has like an interesting taste. So she gave her a glass of mineral water, and there were drugs in it. And she drugged this lady. And the lady Maddie ended up passing out. And she kept her ill and took care of her. I'm using air quotes. Took care of her for over a week until Maddie died.
Wow.
So the family thought that Maddie was just sick with something. Jane told them, she's very ill, and doctors came and they couldn't figure out why she was so sick and what was going on with her. And then she died, and the family just assumed, she must have died from this mystery illness that she had. So Jane moves into the main house with Alden, Maddie's husband, and the kids to help take care of the children and the home. But Jane was like, well, I owe them all this money, and they're not going to let me live it down, so I got to get rid of everybody. I got to wipe them all out. So she decides to kill the entire family, even the children, one by one, the
Slowly?
Davis family. First, she started with one of the kids, the youngest daughter. I think she was only like 6 or 7. Drugged her, killed her. Then she did the father. And then the rest of kids, she just killed. And each family member died one by one under her watch.
After the parents were gone, she was left alone with the kids?
Well, she had been their caretaker for a while. I think this all happened in a span of like a month. Doctors were confused by this, but no one actually questioned Jane until someone spoke up and said that he witnessed something incredibly creepy. So it turns out, one night, Jane was injecting Minnie, the oldest daughter, and Minnie's father-in-law dropped by the house because everyone had been very quote-unquote sick lately. So he dropped by the house to check on the family, and he walked up to Minnie's bedroom door, and he sees Jane standing over Minnie, and he sees her inject her with something. So
should have smoked her.
One day later, she died. Like, he didn't know that she was going to die. He thought, this nurse is taking care of her, but then she died the next day. So he didn't have any proof of anything. He was just like really suspicious. So he starts pushing doctors and police to look into Jane. He's like, this lady, something's going on with her. You need to investigate her. So finally, investigators decided to exhume the bodies of the family.
Which I know means bring them back up from the dirt.
Yes, exhume them.
The profiler knows a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So
I've done about 60 episodes of this thing, maybe.
Exactly, yep, over 60. So finally, investigators exhumed the bodies and tried to test them to figure out the true cause of death. And while all this was going on, Jane persuaded her dead stepsister, Elizabeth, the one she killed, she persuaded her husband, Oramel, to let Jane move in with him.
Huh.
And he did, because he didn't know that she killed Elizabeth. And he hired her as a housekeeper.
Being standoffish. No one would ever be like, you know what? Jess died. Let me ask Russ if I could live there. Because if they went to ask me, I wouldn't pick up the phone or text. It's like when someone, and definitely that text would start out with, I hate when people do this.
What?
When you just text me, hey.
Yeah.
That isn't how texts work.
Yeah.
or hello, and then they just leave it. I just don't respond.
Yeah. That's something I don't do either. I don't just say hey. I just send my text.
It's not a phone call. I don't have to. You don't have to say hello, and then I say hello.
Yeah.
If you do that, you're probably a little old, and I'm giving you a tip from someone that isn't super old. Don't do that. Just text what you need, and I'll see it.
Well, this guy, Elizabeth's husband, Ormel, was like, all right, cool. You can move in with me and work for me and be my housekeeper. So
Ormel's fucked.
So a few months later, the other housekeeper he had dies. And then this guy, Ormel, was like super suspicious of Jane because he's like, oh, well, everyone she's around dies. So
She's
he
the Grim
also...
Reaper, bro.
Turns out, too, she was slowly drugging him. She was crushing up stuff and putting it in his like morning coffee, slowly drugging him. So he was always like kind of sickly and felt weird. He went right to police and said, this Jane woman, super sus. Everyone dies around her. What?
That slang is from 2020. Ain't no way. He walked over there.
Imagine.
Hey, guys. I let's leave my house. She's super sus. They'd be like, what are you talking about?
I'm ad-libbing.
I'm picturing like drunk history right now.
Yeah. So everyone dies around her, and I've been like super sick. So can you please check this lady out, right? So after all this suspicion, finally, after everything, Jane gets arrested, and they charge her with murder. So she goes on trial, and she actually wore a nurse's outfit to trial to try and win sympathy with the public.
And what kind of behavior is that she's doing right now, wearing that outfit in court?
What do you mean?
It's super sus behavior.
So she wears this outfit, and she actually does win sympathy with people. She played this part of this innocent nurse who's just trying to help everybody, and a lot of folks believed her. So while Jane was in jail, she decided to change all of her life goals and write romantic novels. She wanted to become like the Danielle Steele of her time. So she starts writing all these romantic novels in jail. But while she's in jail...
Who's Danielle Steele?
She writes all the naughty romantic novels with the really explicit sex scenes.
Oh, well, there's porn on phones now, so I didn't think those things still existed.
No, they're like for women. It's like a woman... Danielle Steele's like a woman author. And she writes love stories, but then also the sex scenes are like really explicit in them.
Women are super sus.
Anyway, she starts writing all these romantic novels. But while in jail, the exhumed bodies were tested, and they found morphine and atropine in their system. So now Jane is definitely being charged with at least 2 murders. And she needed to undergo a psych evaluation to see if she was sane. So at first, when talking to psychiatrists, she played the innocent card, claiming, that she was afraid of dead bodies. I could never kill anyone. I think dead bodies are so scary. But then after talking to psychiatrists for a while, they obviously saw right through it. And finally, she admitted to killing 12 people. But they thought she had to have killed way more. With the amount of time she spent in hospitals, it's kind of hard to say who she killed and how many people she killed, but it had to be way more than 12.
And the records probably aren't as accurate where it goes from computer to computer.
No.
You got to
nothing was
put a note in a pigeon's mouth and tell it to go.
Well, she told the psychiatrist that she got sexual pleasure from it. And this made the psychiatrist determine that Jane was insane. So she also told her defense attorney a different story.
Ooh, that's a good name for the episode.
Insane in the Membrane Jane.
Well, that was very long, but I was thinking Insane Jane.
Yeah, that's a good name. Or super sus.
Just try to be hip.
Her defense attorneys got a different story from her, though. She told her defense attorneys that she killed 31 people. So it's really unknown how many people she actually killed. But after an 8-hour trial, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity and sentenced to Taunton Insane Hospital. Apparently, when they read her verdict in court, she started laughing hysterically, which is super creepy.
That was very strategic.
Why? Because you think she wanted to look more insane?
Yeah, but I bet back then going to a crazy home was way worse than going to jail because they do that thing, the ice pick in your eyeball from like
lobotomy,
American Horror Story, they electrocute your brain and stuff. I bet it was way worse. You're getting experimented on in there.
That's true, yeah. She starts laughing, and this made all the newspapers really run with the Jolly Jane narrative. So her nickname was Jolly Jane from the beginning because she was very bubbly, but then now in court when she was not guilty by reason of insanity, she starts laughing hysterically, and then they're like, oh, Jolly Jane, and they like really ran with that narrative because this was huge in the news. So the superintendent of the asylum later said that Jane was not remorseful at all.
That's true.
And was instead very proud of her murders, and she would brag about them. It was speculated, but obviously not proven, that she killed over 100 people. Over the years, her mental health like seriously declined, and she became very delusional, and she would hallucinate later on in her life. And she finally died at age 84 in the asylum from pneumonia. And that is the story of Jolly Jane. Doesn't that creep you out, though? Like the fact that, she was a creeper.
Yeah, it sucks, too, because if you're going to hospital, get help.
I know. That's why, like, the story that I read about the nurse who killed his patients after heart surgery, like, really pissed me off. Because you're in such a vulnerable state after that. Like, someone having heart surgery, it's so vulnerable. And then someone is just, and you're in the ICU, like, I don't know. To me, it's just so disgusting.
Well, yeah, because you're defenseless. You can't.
You're totally defenseless, yeah.
And all I would be thinking is, if I ever get out of this bed, you're getting all this smoke.
But they didn't know. They didn't know that he was doing that. He was injecting their IV lines with air.
Oh, that's
right. He
right.
wasn't drugging them. So they didn't know what he was doing. And like public service announcement, a couple bubbles in your IV here and there, it's okay. It's when it's a huge amount of air. Like obviously we want least amount of bubbles as possible, but like a huge amount of air is incredibly unsafe and you will have a stroke. So that's what happened.
And I hear strokes suck.
Terrible. Strokes are horrible. So yeah, well, that's the story of Jolly Jane. Did you like this story?
Yeah, that was cool. Hearing all these people die in their misery, it was so wonderful.
Well, it was an older one, so I didn't mean it like that.
It was so good. I mean, death after death after death.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that. My true crime peeps understand. Like, you don't like the story, but you're interested in the story. You find it interesting, I guess is the right word. Not like it.
Well, since it's the new year, too, I was thinking of something else when I was talking about resolutions. Pretty much everyone's a stay fit, stay alive.
True. Yeah.
And if you're not staying fit, at least stay alive.
Yeah.
For you people that don't want to stay fit.
Well, yeah, I feel like...
Or, we could always go back to the throwback. Stay fat, don't get kidnapped.
Yeah, there you go.
It'd be hard to carry away.
That's true. Well, check us out on Instagram at Wife of Crime Pod and Facebook, Wife of Crime, The Crime Family. And if you're interested in more content and want to hear us talk about documentaries that are on Netflix and Hulu, go to patreon.com/Wife of Crime Pod. And and if you have a listener story, I'm getting a bunch of them. I'm racking up. I have a big catalog now, so it might take a while for you to hear your story. But if you have an interesting story, true crime, paranormal, or you just want to be really funny, or you just want to write an email and roast Russ the entire time, that would be fun too. Send it to wifeofcrimepod@gmail.com.
Send it at wifeofcrimepod@gmail.com. But if your story's good, don't worry that there's a long list because you can move up the line.
That's true.
And if you try to roast me and fail, I'm going to find your social media, Instagram, and I'm going to make fun of the way your children look.
Oh, no, you will not.
Because not all kids are cute.
No. All right, guys. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.